Hello, everyone. I am Orly Burlov, and I am welcoming you to this week's Compliance Corner. With me is my colleague,
Hello, I'm Noel Vestal.
and we have a very special guest
Very
today
special.
named CMMC Hammer from Schellman. Yo, peace. I'm a loser.
Too legit, baby. Too legit.
He's taking it way back.
Let's take it way back. All right. Well, CMMC Hammer, it is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity that you're joining us. I'm tickled pink. I didn't know that, um, Hammer, that you were like part of the CMMC community. I mean, is this like a recent addition?
Well, I mean, I've been there. I've been there since the start. Really. I mean, it was actually my idea at the beginning, and you know, copyright being what it is, I had to let it go, and but they allowed me to stay so I can continue to participate and contribute.
To the CMMC world. Well, that's great. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe in it 100%. I absolutely.
so we should let you know one or two things about CMMC Hammer. He is from Schellman, and he's decided, he's taken a break from his career as a musician and an artist and a wonderful entertainer, and deciding to speak with us a little bit about CMMC because he, guess you didn't know this, CMMC Hammer is very knowledgeable about this space. And he's
Very.
going to talk to us today about what is called CCP or CMMC Certified Professional. And so CMMC Hammer has been teaching a lot of these professional classes. And so we brought him on the show today to give us his expertise on CMMC Certified Professional Training, CCP training. Let us know who can benefit from it, who's the target audience, and why it's important. So, once again, CMMC. Can I call you that CMMC, or do you prefer CMMC Hammer, like the
I,
full
I actually kind of prefer just hammer.
Hammer? Okay, you'll be Nail, he'll be Hammer.
I love it. And just to add some color even more to this, I actually took my CCP training with CMMC Hammer or just Hammer.
Just Hammer.
Boom shakalaka.
Oh, that must have been entertaining to the nth degree.
It really was. Yes.
Yeah. So
And
Hammer.
very informative. So
So Hammer. Can you tell us a little bit about the importance of CMMC professional training, CCP training? Why is it an important thing? First of all, to talk about what does it provide, and why don't we just start there? Why don't you fill that in?
So I'll be happy to. So I'll tell you what. So it's important for everyone to know and understand CMMC at some level. Now, not everybody needs to know all the intimate details that the hammer does, but it's important to understand at some level what CMMC is, what it's designed to do, and how it's going to best benefit you and the nation as a whole. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about securing our supply chain, and we recognize, right? Everyone has come through this pandemic, and we saw what happened when the supply chain got disrupted. Now, imagine that it's not a rogue virus, but a rogue nation that infects the supply chain. Now we're in big trouble. So at the end of the day, that's what CMMC is all about. It's about protecting our supply chain and our American way of life.
Yeah, and so the training provides instructions on how to do that.
Oh, absolutely. From the start to the finish, the nuts and the bolts and the oatmeal. And it tells you why it was created, what the importance of it is, how to understand the individual documentation pieces that go into a CMMC assessment, all the way from what you have to do as an organization seeking certification, or as I like to call them, OSCs. and how to register to be assessed in your organization, depending on what level you're going to need to accomplish by your contractual requirements, and then how to achieve that certification in the most orderly and expeditious manner possible.
So, Hammer, you taught the course, right? You told me, Noel, that you took the course with Hammer.
I sure did. Absolutely. Yeah. And it was very informational and it was very informative. And all the information that Mr. Hammer is discussing right now was definitely in that. And also, the thing that I got so much benefit from was that it wasn't just me in that course, it was a bunch of other people who are in the CMMC sort of eco space. So it was a lot of different conversations. And one thing I will definitely say that I really, really enjoyed about the course that you taught, Mr. Hammer, with me was that you so encouraged us all to have discourse and to have a conversation, because all the people who are in that group were all people who have done something with CMMC before. So, varying different levels, consultants and people like me and, whatever. But it was really great to have those conversations. And it's something that I don't think is done as much as it should be, where we get to have those spaces. I mean, there's places in Discord and that kind of thing, but it was nice to like actually have like a live conversation about all of it. It was really beneficial.
Yeah. So, are there different levels of CCP?
So not necessarily different levels of CCP. CCP, the professional is its own level to itself. It is a stepping stone to additional level and certification if a candidate so wishes to continue on. Um, so typically the typical route, right? Is a candidate will start as an RP, right, or registered professional, and uh, then progress into a CCP status, and they will take the class, and maybe they will take the exam to be a certified individual. It's not necessarily required. Maybe your organization just needs an expert inside the building that needs to understand these regulations and how to apply them to the organization. Now, and then if you are so inclined, you can move to the next level, which will be a certified assessor. We'll talk about that on a later date.
Yeah, Noel, maybe you could tell me some of the stuff you learned from him, or like what are some of the things that, can you give an example of one of the things you might have learned?
So one of the things that I really loved was just, I mean, just even the foundational stuff, the way that Hammer actually presented everything. So like one thing that I really loved that you made really clear to all of us from the jump, which is something that we have said so many times when we're on here, that CMMC is the certification. That's it. It is not the framework. It is the certification for a framework you're already supposed to be doing. NIST 800-171, you're already required to do.
Right.
CMMC is double checking on you. So like we actually dove into that a lot more and started talking about how from a technical standpoint, 800-171A, the assessor's guide, is really at this point the legal standard for doing an assessment. It's not the CMMC assessment guide. Now, if you're going to get a CMMC assessment and you want to look at the assessor's guide, it's very helpful, but it is important to remember that distinction. So there was a lot of like information like that that I hadn't thought about. It's not that I didn't know, obviously, that 800-171 was the framework, but I was like, oh, that's actually a good point. There were a lot of moments like that throughout the course of the whole conversation and the whole week, because it's a week-long course.
Right.
So I think
8 hours a day.
it's it was 8 hours a day, right? Just about, depending on the day. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's roughly 40 hours in a week. So yeah, there's a lot of information too. And Hammer, I'm sure you'll get to this, but there's a lot of information too that is required by the Cyber AB to go through, and you have to do a certain way. But what I really loved about specifically taking the training with you, Hammer, and everybody we had in the call or in the training was that it was, yeah, okay, we're going to check these boxes, we're going to look at this different information, but then you would go into more in-depth detail about whatever those slides were saying, which I really liked. And also, it really depends on the group of people you take the training with too, and what company you have the training with. I obviously am very, biased when it comes to this, and I say
Partial.
Schellman. I'm extremely partial on this. That I think Schellman is amazing. We love partnering with you guys, and also I think that you, Hammer, are fantastic at teaching, especially a 40-hour class. It's a lot. 40 hours is a lot. Like, it can be taxing, very much so. And it wasn't. You made it so much more interesting and more engaging. There was a lot of communication that was so nice. It made it significantly less boring. That's for sure.
So one of the
Well,
things
it's all about having fun at the end of the day, right? I mean, with this, this is a hard job to do in the first place. There's a lot of education and schooling and know-how that goes into just becoming what we are as cybersecurity professionals, and to be so serious all the time. I mean, that's got to quit. That's not legit.
yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. So like one of the things though that I think is interesting is some of the things that you can do with once you become an CCP certified. You made these really cool slides, Mr. Hammer. Let me just see if I can share them with her.
They are pretty amazing slides, truly. They really are.
Yeah. So
I do what I can.
yeah. So compliance corner. Welcome CMMC Hammer, too legit to quit. So yeah. So can you just speak to some of the roles that a CCP can serve in after they take the training?
Oh, well, absolutely. So of all the levels within the hierarchy of CMMC, the CCP really is kind of the most pivotal. It's the only level that you have multiple responsibilities, right? So a CCP really can act in a couple different capacities. That first capacity, they act as a consultant to the OSC. I love that word, OSC. Boy, I tell you what. And what they're doing is helping that organization prepare themselves to be assessed. They are the resident expert, if you will, when issues or questions come up on, well, what does this control mean? And what is this control really saying? And, this is not clear to me. Is there other amplifying guidance that I can go to? And that's what that CCP is going to do for that particular organization. Then you have another potential avenue for the CCP that they can participate in assessment activities. Now, understand, if you are acting as a consultant for an organization, you cannot also be on that assessment team. That's very important. That's very important to understand.
It's really important.
It is very important.
So as long as you understand that, as I'm either going to help that organization or I'm going to assess that organization, and every individual within the CMMC hierarchy is going to sign what is understood and known in the world as a code of professional conduct. And that code of professional conduct, it illuminates for each individual candidate what they can and can't do and what's expected of them. Most importantly, ethics is important. And we all have to have ethics. We have to pray to make it today.
Yeah. There's many politicians I've wanted to ask what is their definition of integrity, but we digress.
Right. I wanted to say too that was actually something that I found really interesting, that when you talked about, because this actual slide, I think you actually showed us at one point, it looks very familiar. So the part where you can be an assessment team member, I had known that, but I didn't realize how much work the CCP does on an assessment team. I didn't realize that really the CCP in a lot of ways kind of does a lot of the, not necessarily grunt work, but a lot of the actual, like the interviewing and the conversations and like, taking notes. Like they do a lot of work, like a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We put a lot on the CCP shoulder. But if you're going to get a certification that calls you a professional,
Yep.
then you should be able to handle that load that we're going to put on your shoulder. But understand, you're not going to do it alone, right? So the CCP, must be acting under the official guidance of a lead assessor. So they don't own it all. They do have what we might call senior assistants helping them through the process. But in the grand scheme, they're not going to help them do the work. They're just going to make sure the work is done correctly.
Right.
Yeah, just a quick question there for you, Hammer. Is there a reason that this dude on the slide looks like Sherlock Holmes?
Absolutely not. I was looking for the baldest white guy I could find, and there you go.
And there he is.
Oh, okay. Well, he does have some hair, so I don't know. He's not completely.
Well, I found it important, because men are kind of, we'll say, self-conscious about losing all their hair. As you can tell, the hammer don't care. The hammer don't need it. The hammer is going to drop the hammer every time, so it don't matter to me. But there are some that have issues with it, so I didn't want to offend anyone. And the handlebar mustache, boy, I tell you what, if the hammer could grow one, the hammer would do it. But unfortunately, it's just not in the cards for the hammer.
Yeah. Well, never having been a bald white guy in my life, I don't know that I take particular offense, but I was just wondering. Yeah. So, Hammer, one of the other things that I'm kind of wondering about is it's this. Are
Sorry,
you?
I was admiring myself. I'm sorry. I get lost like that sometimes.
Yeah. So,
Oh, wait.
can you maybe just talk for one more moment about who is the target audience for CCP? If I'm like someone out in the DIB, whether I'm here in the US, in Boston, Massachusetts, or over in the UK, can you maybe give me a sentence or two of who this is um, designed for? Can I be an international and take this class?
It's a good question.
That's an outstanding question, and I tell you what, it's you dropped a little knowledge on them right there. It's little bit. They need to understand what the DIB is. I mean, it's not the dab, right? But it's the DIB. They need to understand the DIB is the defense industrial base. That's what the DIB is. I mean, it's not. We're not dabbing. I mean, just you gotta make that clear. But I digress. The CCP is open to all nationalities. You can be from anywhere, and attend the class. It's whether or not you plan to participate in certain activities is where the cutoff will begin to happen, right? So, for instance, if you're going to participate in a level 2 assessment, which is what a lot of CCPs will do once they are properly qualified and certified, they must be too legit to get involved. They got to be a U.S. citizen to do that. But to just take the class and become certified, no, you're fine. You can be from Australia, and we don't care, because we want the world to know what CMC is, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to proselytize CMMC.
What about consulting though? So if I'm a non-US person and I get a CCP, can I still do consulting? You said I can't be on assessment. I can still do consulting?
You can do that consulting, because we have a lot of organizations, for instance, that have satellite companies here in the great old United States, but they have parent companies in the UK or in Germany or in my favorite, the Netherlands. We'll talk about that later. But yes, it does not matter if you are of a different nationality consulting for an organization. Now, understand that organization does need to be very, very careful to understand the proper marking and labeling of their what we call CUI. Don't call it CUI. Don't ever call it CUI. We don't like that. CUI to make sure that that information is not exposed to foreign nationals is what we call them. But yes, you can absolutely consult as to how to execute things without having access to the actual data.
Makes sense.
Um, so that's great. I mean, I could think of a company just needing, if you need a stakeholder inside your company to make sure that
Yeah.
you are on the right compliance path, someone to kind of manage your journey. Someone who's has a CCP training could be ideal.
Absolutely, and that's why we don't cut off right who can participate. We want the world to participate. We just have to limit because of our self interests. Who actually gets access to maybe some more sensitive information that we may not want leaking out into places across the sea.
Yeah, I get that. Totally get that. So, Noel, you went through this whole training, and I know you told me after it is that a lot of the stuff you had heard before, and perhaps not in the depth that Hammer went in. So,
Right.
what was your takeaway from having gone through a week of this training?
Well, it was a lot of, so obviously my situation is a little different. I've been in the compliance world for a while, and I myself have gone through an assessment and actually done this for a company. So my knowledge level is a lot higher than the average person who's probably going to take this, I would imagine. So take that with a grain of salt. But I know for instance, we had another member of our Prevail team on the call who did not have as much understanding of CMMC, and he was blown away by pretty much everything. Like, did you know this? There's a whole section on CUI markings and what that actually looks like. And as someone who's been in the DoD space a very long time, it was all very much secondhand, like, oh, obviously, right? But there are so many people who don't have that experience. And I think that that's something really amazing about this training, that it's, so like I also did the RP training when it first came out, way back when. I was one of the first people to take it way back when. And it was great if you're looking for a really like just foundational understanding of CMMC, just very baseline. If you're looking to really like what Hammer said, if you're looking to be like a SME, like a subject matter expert at some organization, CCP is that deep dive. You're going way farther. Like, what does the certification process look like? What does the assessment process look like? Let's dial down to every phase of the 4 phases that the CMMC CAP has, which is the CMMC assessment procedures. So we dug into that, and I definitely felt like I had a better understanding from a high to a low level of really what that looks like, because that's something that obviously the CAP didn't come out when I did my RP training 4 years
Right.
ago. CAP wasn't out there, so that was really great for me too. But like I said, if you're someone who doesn't, even if you just have like you're okay with your CMMC knowledge, the CCP training will bring you up to like the 100-foot level. Like you'll know all the things that you need to know, or at least most of them. And even more importantly, you'll know the questions to ask, which I
Right.
think is a really, really big part, because there are a lot of people I think who don't even know what questions to ask. Like they don't even know what they don't know. And the CCP dives into it in a way where you can get a lot of those questions answered. You can have a lot of other questions come up, and then you have experts like Hammer here and all
Yeah.
the other people who are on the call who are with you and who are training with you, and you can get those questions answered. You can have conversations about, well, what would you think about this control? How would you would assess this? How would you assess this? And you get multiple different angles and ideas of how to do things, which can be really helpful, because as we know, NIST 800-171 controls / CMMC can be vague and confusing, and people get overwhelmed by them. And I feel like CCP kind of narrows it a lot more, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. Um, I just wanted to show this one last thing that you gave me, Mr. Hammer. Mr. Hammer.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought if people wanted to learn a little bit more about kind of taking training with the Hammer, um, they could reach you here at Hammer Time. It's not like Hammer Time at Schellman.com, but just training at Schellman.com.
Yeah, so I'm working with the Schellmanators. We call them the Schellmanators, to get an official CMMC Hammer mailbox, but we ran into some trademark and copyright issues. I mean, be on the lookout for it. It's coming. It's coming. But for right now, yes, training at Schellman.com is going to get you directly in contact with the hammer.
All right. So, Hammer, I'm just wondering, as we go into the final credits of this, can you do a song for us? Like, we're all big fans of your music.
So I knew you were gonna ask me that, and I checked with the lawyers, and the lawyers said, we would prefer not because we have piracy things going on, and we don't want you to leak anything out that you've been working on in the lab. So I would love to, maybe next time well I'm gonna hook you up with some new tunes, some new jams, some new bobbits.
I like
All
it.
right.
We're gonna hold you to it.
I do. You hold me to it. Hold me to you. The hammer always come through.
I do. Absolutely.
Well, Mr. Hammer, never having met you before, this has been a true pleasure. I know Noel had the pleasure of spending time with you before, so for her, it's just a reacquaintance. But thank you so much for blessing us with your time. I know you're a busy dude, so this has been cool.
Thank
It's
you.
all love. Anytime you all want to talk to the hammer, you just drop the hammer a note, and the hammer's gonna be there 100% of the time. Whenever Prevail needs the hammer, hammer will prevail.
I like that.
I
Let's
love
bring
it.
back on.
I love it.
All right. Bye, everyone.